Fall is the start of a mindset of more inward focus with time spent in the home and especially the kitchen. All the baking, the warm breads, the cozy soups, and the yummy lattes are what we are serving up today. So let's spend some cozy fall days in the kitchen. Apron strings are tied and the coffee is sipped, and the morning starts with some yummy banana bread. This recipe is over on my blog, and it is such an easy and simple recipe. There are like 6 ingredients included in this recipe, and it is a hit. It is one I grew up with and one I truly enjoy and love having on hand in my home, in the freezer, and bringing to friends' homes for special treats. So we are making some breads, getting some help with the little hands, and getting it whipped up. And I love this about breads is they can actually be made into muffins or mini bread loaf pans. They just are pretty versatile, and you can do add-ins, add nuts, you can add dried fruit, or we are adding some dark chocolate mini chips that I get from Azure Standard, which you will see in a bit. So just a fun little treat to have that I will be sticking in my freezer and, of course, serving up that day for morning snack. In the fall, we like to do more warm drinks, and even for our kiddos. So a special hot latte, decaf, of course, for the kiddos is what we are having today. It's fun for them because they get to pick some little stevia drops that we have, which I have in my Amazon storefront, and they also just enjoy sipping it at the table while eating a snack and just savoring the special time of sitting at the table, drinking our hot coffees together. So a fun treat, and definitely more fun to have in the cooler months, just to savor those moments of drinking the hot drinks together. We are on to grinding our wheat berries, and these are actually einkorn berries that I am using, and going to be making a sourdough boule bread. I think it's called boule or boule. I think it's a bowl bread. So anyways, I maybe pronounced it wrong, but either way, I've been working on grinding more flour for my breads and just trying to adjust the liquid amounts for the different flour. And I just appreciate grinding my own flour, knowing the facts of all the nutrients that is in a freshly milled flour. I've heard and listened to that after a flour sits, even for like 30 seconds, it loses some of that nutrients. So imagine buying flour from the store that's been sitting on a shelf for a very long time. And yes, I do that as well because it's convenient to have it ground. But when I can get the most nutrients into my foods for my family, I will do that. So spending some time to just grind it and have it in my breads is what I'm going to try to do more and more. And even having some of that fresh ground flour to make into muffins or the banana bread you saw, just to use that type of flour makes me know that I am serving my family well. And speaking of, I'm using the extra ground einkorn berries or einkorn flour to make an applesauce muffin. I have a few applesauce breads that are sourdough on my blog. This one happens to be one I just made up, so there is no recipe to follow. I apologize for that. But I have a lot of applesauce in my freezer and on my pantry, and some that was still in the fridge. So it's good to use some of that up in a sweetbread or a mini muffin, as you will see, to stick in the freezer or to give away or to give to some friends. I feel like a lot of these breads are very similar when it comes to an applesauce bread because you add those warming spices of cinnamon and nutmeg and cloves. And this one in particular, I like to add a dairy proponent to keep it more moist. So I put in some Greek yogurt. It just makes it really moist, sometimes a little bit too oily, which I've been trying to compromise on that and figure out the ratios of the flour as well, so it's not so oily when you pick it up that your hands feel greasy. But I am loving these little mini muffin tins that I picked up at a thrift store. I accidentally had bought the wrong muffin cup sizes, and so I thought, all right, I found some at a thrift store, I might as well use them so that we can enjoy just little treats in a little mini muffin cup. So making those up along with those banana breads to enjoy, to freeze, to give away. Like I said, lots of baking going on in this cozy kitchen today. The stretch and fold of the bread is such a simple and quick task. It takes 10 seconds. So if you're home during a day, this is a really easy bread to make. And I use the one from Farmhouse on Boone. It's just something that I've really enjoyed doing lately, is doing this type of bread over my sandwich sourdough loaf bread that I had been loving and enjoying doing. This one is just quick, simple, and beautiful in the end too. Sometimes you got to just put the baby on to get some things done and to let them get a little more rest time in. So I just use my carrier to help little guy fall asleep some more after either a short nap or after he's had some wake time, and just enjoy those little cuddles while I get some food prepped for our evening meal, which is pizza. I do pizza every Friday night for our family. So during nap times or time when kids are awake even, I try to get stuff done, like prepping the salad as well, so that after nap time I can spend some time with the kids at a park or playing in our backyard or reading books or whatever it might be. So that meal prep time is important for me so I can get outside, get bonding with the kids as well. And then there's always napkins to be folded. We use cloth napkins in our house, and you can't tell in the footage here, but they are very stained. And so I just bought some probably 4 or 5 years ago because I like the idea of cloth napkins and they get well used. They're probably almost a little too threadbare, so it's probably time to invest in some nicer ones. But with little kids, they get so grimy and gross that we use these ones for just our family. And when friends come over or guests come over, we use the nicer ones. With more time spent in the kitchen, there is always restocking of those pantry staples. Like you saw me do earlier, I do grind my own flour, but I also like to get some unbleached all-purpose organic white flour from Azure Standard, and I buy the big 25-pound bag. I do have a Azure Standard affiliate link in my description box that you can check out if you want to look at products to purchase for you and your family, because I just love the quality of Azure Standard for bulk supplies or for those of you who have a smaller family or just you. There's something for everybody to be found at Azure Standard, and I know I am doing well in purchasing items from them because of their quality. All right, the fall kitchen still needs some good fresh flowers. The ones I had found at a fall festival with a flower market as well there are on their way out. And so I have a few zinnias still left that I plan to cut and put into that pitcher, or actually a smaller one, and just take some of the eucalyptus out of the other one to add for some greenery and some yummy scent. Eucalyptus smells so good. But just clipping a few of my last zinnias before the season is done for the fall. Fall kitchen, I do like to decorate, but I also like to keep things practical and simple. So I did do a fall home tour not too long ago on my channel here, probably a month ago, but I love bringing those fresh cut flowers in while they're still alive, because as soon as the frost hits, they are done for. So bringing that in, as well as just little hints of fall, like little pumpkins, cozy candles, dried herbs on my accordion rack, just little things that remind me of the outdoors but can be still in the kitchen. I just love adding those simple touches. So with our growing family, I do make 2 pizzas. I make a yeast quick rise crust, and this is one that I have gone to now for over a year. And I also do my sourdough crust that's just pour on sourdough discard onto a pan and bake it. But this one I like having just for a variety of crusts. And I'm doing a barbecue chicken pizza here with some canned chicken. And then the other one is as well, it's just more of a thin crust. But I like to use fresh things that are in the garden when I can. So like more in the summer, I'll use fresh tomatoes to make a sauce, put some basil on it. The fresh peppers and onions, I do use some of my garden onions that I had chopped up earlier on here. And I always like to use, again, the Azure Standard cheese. So I get a 5-pound block of cheese from Azure Standard and cube it up into like 16-ounce blocks and freeze some and keep some fresh. And again, little hands love to help when they can in the kitchen. Two delicious pizzas that will serve our family's hunger needs well. And then on to making the rest of my sourdough bread, because now it needs some shaping and put into my Banneton basket. Again, just something really beautiful to make that doesn't require a lot of hands-on time, and it's just been kind of a fun little hobby to start working on perfecting this boule bread in my kitchen. And I did buy a lame, I think is what you call it, to cut the bread and experiment with using that to make designs. I haven't gotten too in-depth on that, but it's just kind of fun to be able to have something nice to cut the bread instead of just a knife like I used to try to do. And then onto a new day. The sunset was beautiful, but a new day rises and it's time to bake that bread. So just scoring it with that tool I found cheaply on Amazon actually, so I can link it for you, and going to be baking it in my Dutch oven so it's ready for a meal to serve that we are having guests over for that you will see on this particular day. This is one of my husband's favorite soups that I created, and it is a creamy chicken corn chowder. And yes, it's a great time of year to use those root vegetables. So the potatoes that I just dug up out of the garden, some carrot, celery if you've got it, and then of course corn, which I froze from earlier this summer. So it's definitely one of those soups that if you are a gardener, you can just throw a lot of your produce into and let it cook during the day and get all those yummy aromas into the air, so you're really excited for it for the evening meal. But it's really great for me to be able to just have some of these items on hand. Like I said, the frozen corn. There was some celery from the garden that I put into the freezer earlier this year. And then the onion that I had cut up earlier. So just really handy to make a soup that's just kind of a dump and go. A little bit of cutting with the potatoes. But other than that, it's just a nice meal to cook up that's cozy and warming. So check that soup recipe out on my blog. Tomatoes are still coming in really strongly in my garden. So just getting some washed up because I am either going to can up these cherry tomatoes or give some away. I'm not sure right now in this season of life if I want to take the time to can them right now or if I want to just offer them up to neighbors and friends. So just getting them cleaned up nonetheless because they needed it, and that way I can put them in the fridge for people to have later or give away or freeze, I suppose, too, as I can can them another time if I'd like to freeze them. So back to the rest of the soup prep and just throwing the chicken into the crock pot as well. This is a new recipe for you all over on my blog, daviekillian.com, and it is a pear crisp. I have shared a rustic apple crisp recipe over on my blog a while ago, and a lot of that for a crisp recipe, I usually just substitute the fruit, but this one I wanted to change up a little bit and do a little bit different topping that actually requires less sugar. So I'm all for that if you can, as long as it's sweet enough, because pears are a very sweet fruit anyways. So it has brown sugar in with the pears, and of course those warming spices like the cinnamon, and then a little flour to thicken it, of course, so it doesn't get too runny. But the top requires less sugar, and it's still so sweet, so good, ooey gooey goodness that I served up for our guests that evening, and they wanted the recipe, which I said I didn't have out yet, so they will have to get it as well when it comes out on the blog. But it's one you can get over on daviekillian.com, a simple pear crisp recipe that I think you will enjoy for the season when pears are in abundance. Adding the crumble top to the top of the fruit compote mixture with the pears, and had it baked, and now it is ready to be cooling and enjoyed along with the soup. A new day, and a rainy one at that, which makes it also that much more enjoyable to be in a cozy kitchen making from scratch food. So we are starting off in the kitchen with some homemade croutons from the leftover breads we've had over the weekend. And the kids in the background are making a little fort. So that's kind of how the kitchen goes in our house. The kitchen is a place of use in many ways. We school at the table, we play games at the table, we build forts under the table, we eat at the table, of course, and in the kitchen, and it just is literally the heart of the home, especially when we live in such a small home of 950 square foot. The kitchen is like almost a quarter of the house, I feel like, for size and where we spend the majority of our time. So it's a lovely place to be. So while croutons are baking, I am working on a butternut squash soup, which, you guessed it, the recipe is over on my blog, daviekillian.com. This video has many of the recipes over on my blog, so just go over there and find yourself a few soups, some good desserts, some yummy recipes that you can try out for your family. But this recipe requires 3 butternut squash, some couple apples, a whole onion, a couple cloves of garlic, chicken stock, salt, pepper, and heavy cream if you want it for later. Very simple with ingredient wise. Just take some time for the chopping and prepping and roasting of those vegetables. So if you can get that done when kiddos are napping or while they're playing around you, by all means do that, because then it can just simmer on the stove for a while after it's been roasted. You immersion blend it later and you have a delicious meal. So I hope you do go check out this recipe, because it's just one that my family loves, and my kids got so excited when they saw the butternut squash come out, because they love their squash soups, and especially soups in general, they really enjoy. But this one is one of their favorites. Just drizzling the squash with some olive oil and adding some salt on there. And of course, I season with salt if I need it more once it's roasted and in my Dutch oven simmering, because you can never go wrong with a good salt. And I love Redmond real salt, which I also either get from Azure or just off of Amazon. But a good quality salt really helps make flavors pop. And I'm also going to be cooking up some bacon, because bacon pieces on top of this soup is really good as well. Since there isn't much for protein in this soup, since it's a squash soup, I like to have some sort of meat to go on it. Or you could honestly just make a side sandwich as well. Now it's some playtime. Play-Doh at the table. Like I said, the kitchen really is a place where we do lots of different things. Since it's rainy and drizzly outside, some extra time inside, spending time playing Play-Doh is what we are all for. This immersion blender gets lots of use in the fall and winter months, and I just love having an immersion blender. So if you don't have one, I highly recommend it. It's a lot easier than putting it into a blender and transferring it back. So I'm blending up the soup while I chat with my husband, and then we are dishing it up for our family. So friends, I hope you got some fall recipe inspiration, and check out my blog for all those recipes that you saw, or the description box if it is not my own. And hope you're enjoying this cozy season and spending more time in the kitchen making delicious food for you and your loved ones. Have a blessed and wonderful day, friends.